Welcome back to Monday Night Innovation. Here we go again with the What Problem Are You Solving podcast. Adam, John, Ty, the three most awesomest hosts you could ever have. Welcome back. Happy Monday. How's everybody doing today?
It's
Better,
Monday,
but not great.
and it's over. Weren't you feeling better last week?
No, last week was when I was was my low. Now I'm 90%, but this has been an annoying one.
Oh yeah, those are the worst.
That's because I talked to you on like late last week, something going on, and I was saying because I was mentioning that I know two Yiddish words, and one of them is schmutz, and you sound like you had a bunch of schmutz in your head.
Yeah. It's a good. What's your second Yiddish word that you know?
A yenta. A yenta. I know a yenta because
It's even worse when your yenta's got the schmutz.
Isn't it? Is a yenta is like a mother-in-law or the person who kind of hooks you up with somebody you think is cute or they think is cute. Something.
No, so
line. That's all I know.
I forgot the word for that. No, a yenta is more just like a gossip. So you're a yenta.
That's how Ty learned
it. Can we get the show started because he just called me a yenta.
Yeah.
So what problem are you solving this week, you yenta?
Yeah.
I am working on a bunch of. One of the things the way I describe myself is an ecosystem builder. I think I first got introduced to this idea when I was with Adam at Rally Indy. Now, is that 2 years ago now, Adam? I think it was like 2 years ago. 2 years ago, and I had never heard of that term before, but the way that you kind of pull all these pieces together, I think like that. I mean, that is a natural way that I think like, who do I need to pull together to solve the algorithm to solve the problem? And so I do that naturally. So I've been on the phone with different people trying to figure out either from a business standpoint, like how do I go and find people so I can make some money, or putting myself in a position to talk to people that can help me solve problems that are 2 steps away. And so I have a really big meeting on Wednesday with some very important and people, and I literally wormed my way into it. It's like, I've been talking to you guys and I've been talking to them. Do you mind if I come along? They're like, okay. So it's not a bad problem, but it's a problem that I'm working on. So all good. How about you, Adam?
I got some stuff with EBL ecosystem built. While I'm chatting, John, let's see if we can pull up the ecosystem building leadership project. I thought it was eblp.com, but it's not. All right, problem number 1, I'm trying to get Ty to do the AB dance, or at least redo the lyrics. You don't have to do the dance. What were the lyrics?
AB, AB, welcome to play with AB, AB. He's a custom guy, and we have real fun, and we talk about startup stuff. We play with AB. Okay, I'm done.
Adam Burke
for the win. Are you satisfied?
So 3 weeks in a row that I'm not just what problem do I have, but what problem did I solve? Okay, so I solved that one. Second one. So we've been South by Southwest comes up quickly every year. This group came together. We talked about not just the idea of pre-selling, but John specifically, his use case, other than being a recovering engineer, his claim to fame was the conference, right? That you pre-sold.
That's right.
So I'm not so naive and embracing constraints that it's going to work for this coming month or next Monday. Let's set something up for a year-long pre-sale. Like what would take like 25 grand, maybe 10 grand minimum. So that could either be one sponsor or a bunch of ticket sales. Shouldn't we just do that now?
Do the What Pays conference?
I think so. Shouldn't we?
That's you got my my gears churning. I'm really curious about this. You threw this live on the air, which is fun.
Oh, that's
John
good.
just got the
That's-
tinglies. I
Hmm.
just got the tinglies.
I mean, we've been throwing capital factor. I mean, there are people we talk about either our customers as the ecosystem folks, like Ty just talked about. So the startups are down there. You got your Govy folks that we could put in a room, and then you got your corporate innovation folks. There was a lean startup conference down there like 10 or 12 years ago. Sort of got away from that, but yeah, yeah. What pays?
That's a problem that we could solve. That would be fun.
And every year it's like, just kind of go with the flow. One year it was the book. This year I'm judging some pitch competitions, and we got the Midwest House. I'll give them it. But like, what if it was us? What if, in addition to supporting all our friends, well, what pays either high volume and just like, what problem are you solving? What problem are you solving? What problem are you solving? All day long, we just sit at the same rainy street restaurant. People come in, they put down $5, and so it could be that way, or you could go
Speed
the
dating,
other,
yeah.
or the other direction. Yeah, some government folks, high level. I mean, this year specifically would be interesting to pull that off last minute, but it's just not going to happen.
Interesting.
Okay, that's
That's a good one to sleep on. I'm really curious now. You got me thinking what that would look like. So thank you for being the idea guy.
all right. Good. And then I guess so. Normally I should quit while I'm ahead. Ty, you had some. You don't have to say them on air and make anyone. You don't have to put anyone on the spot. I'm back in Atlanta next week. We actually do have some specific stuff going on at Emory and Georgia Tech. Specifically with problem solving, customer interviews. So all that stuff's taken care of. But yes, I know there were a couple of people you have mentioned offline. I won't mention anyone's name, but if you want to send me some of those Atlanta connections on the ecosystem building front, by all
Yeah,
means.
that
You
would be
haven't seen.
really interesting. Are you working at Georgia in like their business school entrepreneurship program? What are you doing over there?
So we were invited back. I went to Emory, so we're going to the Emory the Hatchery on Thursday with about 20 or 30 of their students. I think similar to one of the workshops you ran recently. I think John might even be able to pull that up. The Hatchery, Emory, Adam, and Mike. You might be able to find it. And so then we're basically working backwards, filling in space. We have a workshop on Wednesday. Is that it? I don't know. Yeah. So we have a workshop. Yeah, there you go. I think that's us down there. You found it. So yeah,
Dang, I
it's
didn't
sort of
realize
like
you went to Emory. I didn't realize that. I was like, you went to
yeah,
Emory? Oh, snap. How did you from New York end up in Atlanta?
it's a good question, my friend. I don't know.
Oh,
I
wow.
actually don't know. So
That's
yeah,
pretty cool, though.
we're gonna
Nice.
try to run around the ecosystem doing the same exact thing. What problem you solving, who you solving it for, get us 3 or 4, pretty much like the feedback session we've been doing, but at
Nice.
scale in the
Awesome.
ecosystem.
I like it. All
All
right.
right.
Well,
I
that's
might be able
cool.
to get you a couple of people.
All right. I wasted it.
How
Wasted.
about you, John? What problem are you solving, my friend?
We were talking in the green room a little bit. I was in a little bit of a lull between things. Work is not going steady, which is nice, but I still have an itch for something more. And I was thinking about my personal OKRs. Yes, back to the reference of our OKR episode. I do have my OKRs for my personal development, and the one that I think I shared on the air is about some AI training I wanted to knock out, and I'm actually ahead of schedule. I've actually done most of my quarterly OKRs before March was even done. So now I'm kind of thinking, what's the next thing? What What else can I do? So, you know, uh, I'm actually, the
Done
problem I'm
already.
solving is
Ooh.
I'm too awesome. Either how do I slow down my awesomeness, or how do I 2x my awesomeness? So that's a problem I'm trying to solve this week. What next?
Have
What
you
next?
finished? Okay, two-part question.
Yeah.
Have you seen Personal Kanban? Have you seen that?
Oh yeah.
How does Personal Kanban fit inside of personal OKRs? Does it attach
Your
just to the KR? Do you do
yeah.
one KR at a time and then you see? All right,
That's pretty much what I do. I turn a KR into a story or stories, and then I'll know if I met them because the KR is measurable. So whether it's the KR is deliver 10 blog posts, well, I can write 10 stories for that, and I can move my little cards and I'm good to go. Or I can measure the result. So yeah.
do all three of your KRs combined to 1.0, or are
Yes.
they?
Yeah. So I have basically an objective that says something to the order of, let's see, I got it up. Um, grow my AI learning, and what I had set as a KR was to build a prototype RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation database by February 1st. Got that one done. Take another AI course by third week in January. Check, did that. And then I was updating the model and adding more documents to the RAG by March 1st, and I'm ahead of schedule there. So, boom, boom, boom. I've met those goals, and I still have the whole month of March left for my quarterly objective.
Well, you
So
know
when do
why,
you
right?
sleep?
Yeah, Ty, you're being nice to him, but I was
I
actually
know.
going to go the other direction. So, good for you. Blah blah blah. When you sleep, you're so great. I know you want to know. So good OKRs are things that you're only half sure. They should be stretch goals, and you kind of set the bar
Exactly.
a little low, I think.
I did.
What do you have to say for yourself, and how are you gonna get better?
Unacceptable. That's right. Well, as with all things in Agile, you take a guess, you go, and then you get data and learn. So I'm going to have to double down on some of my
Yeah,
KRs. I wasn't
yeah.
aggressive enough this quarter.
I think to add some continuity from last week, I think your story points, your estimates
Ha!
were way off.
My estimates were way low. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. All right,
Good
let's
call.
go.
Good point. So let's talk about this week's episode. Build anything in minutes. Adam, you had a fascinating question that really got me thinking a lot since we started pulling this episode together. You want to set the stage for us on what's been noodling around in your mind?
I don't know how much stage setting. I see like more of like a microphone, with an empty stage and sort of an open mic night than a big
Open mic.
elaborate set. Like set. I think you've been watching too much Saturday Night Live with the elaborate sets.
Oh,
And
I know What Pays Conference needs to have an open mic, so we need to
yes.
include that.
All right. Yeah. I mean, feasibility risk, desirability risk, viability risk. That's pretty much all we talk about that. And so what pays is viability risk. What problem are you solving is desirability risk. We need a fun one for feasibility risk. It's like, what technical thing or what are you building? Build it and they will come. What's the what pays version of feasibility?
Oh, interesting. Yeah. What works?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like exactly.
Yeah,
What
well,
works.
so it's interesting because this conversation spun off a conversation we had a month ago, maybe. We were talking about how easy it is to build wireframes. I think it was with Jamie. She's talking about user-centered design and how quickly you could do some mock-ups and stuff. Well, I think you rightfully pointed out, Adam, that these human-centered design tools that were very helpful for those designers who knew how to manipulate things could get some working prototypes in a pretty simple way that they could hack something together if they knew the right button to click and all that. But in the past 2 or 3 years, even these design tools have now got AI built in, because what doesn't have AI built in nowadays? And you can just start prompting and say, I want an interactive online bookstore that sells books about Taekwondo. And it will not only generate something that looks pretty, it actually works. You can actually have an interactive online storefront in seconds. And so that's taking your design, your feasibility risk way down. It's not scalable, it's not perfect, but if you're trying to build a true MVP and get something in front of a customer, it could take you literally seconds now, where it may have taken a designer a week of experiments before.
Yeah, so I think it depends on what you're trying to learn.
Of course, there's always that.
Um, but like, yeah, we were doing workshops. I'll give my friends at Unbounce. Remember Unbounce?
Oh yeah. Mhm.
So we were doing workshops maybe a full 10 years ago. Again, get out of the building, like the old school Steve Blank stuff. Get out of the building, do interviews, and whether we can. This episode is not necessarily about smoke tests and vaporware and pre-sales, but it is. I guess it is a little bit, because for the most part, you don't really ever need the full product.
Right.
You need people to associate with a value proposition, to be able to exchange currency in exchange for the value proposition. So value
Right.
for currency is the value proposition. So willing to, like, right now, when we're trying to convince people to do interviews, they're either trying to learn about, does the problem exist, but most of them are also just trying to do willingness to pay. And as much as I'm a true customer discovery advocate, at some point you're literally never going to get willingness to. It's a trap. It's like, you're not supposed to ask, like the one question you're not supposed to ask is, how much would you pay for this? And yet willingness to pay is one of the primary objectives of a lot of customer interviews. It's like, just ask them to pay. It's like, to me, that's one of the biggest problems this solves. It's not even the product working. I still think there's a lot of back end stuff that you can do manually. I still believe in doing things that don't scale. I still, believe in, the concierge MVP. But like, on a willingness to pay experiment, especially if you're willing to not take the money and just see if they'll get through that initial paywall, or like, that's
Right.
still the same stuff
Mhm.
we were testing 10 years ago. It's more, the riskiest assumption there is that the founder is willing to do the experiment than that the technology is capable of providing it. Right? Like, the secondary thing is, like, yes, you could have taken wireframes to design, like, you have 100% complete autonomy and control over it. Like, you can literally, even Unbounce, I would argue 10 years ago, almost anyone who has said they were an entrepreneur, wanted to test an idea, should have been able to get into the back end, figure out what A/B testing was, create a variant. But I remember we had all these like long drawn out instructions. Like, I don't know how much we want to really push the envelope and try something live here, but it's like, you can create a landing page. I'll give. I know we're going back and forth between what do we promote and what do we don't, but lovable.dev. There's a bunch of good tools, but they're the first ones that took me seriously enough to give me a code and like think about doing some hackathons with the tool. But yes, you could test. You can build full-on products, but you can 100% create a product page for the specific intent of testing if anybody will pay for that, which doesn't actually solve the what problem are you solving question, but it does solve the what pays question.
So I've been thinking about this in terms of, what AI is going to deliver to particularly those who have a service or some kind of electronically based product. and it feels like an arms race. It feels like you have this capacity with AI to test and test, as John suggested. You can build a wireframe in just crank it out, just knock it out, and post something in a matter of a great prompt and hitting the enter button, which means that somebody else who has an idea that's adjacent to yours is doing it just as quickly. And so, how fast are we doing?
Just crank it out.
Are we?
Knock it out and put some.
Uh-oh, I heard my own voice. Are we
Back up.
doing? Are we doing? I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to say, but it feels like it's like John has an idea and he cranks it out and he puts it out there, and then Ty says maybe a similar idea and he puts it out through some AI and he cranks it out, and then Adam does it and he puts it out and he cranks it out. It feels like this. We're rapidly see. So I don't even know what you did. Build a web page for innovation conference using what problem you're solving. You're building it right there. When did we put that out there, and how quickly? So are we racing to the market, right? Are we putting out tests to capture the market before we're capturing the ideas, before we're learning from whether or not what we're building has any viability associated with it?
It's like the chicken and egg question.
Yeah. Are we literally, guys? It feels like we are. I need to be the first. I need to have the first set of eyeballs on my thing. And because I have the first set of eyeballs on it, I beat everybody else. To it. That's crazy what you just built.
Mm-hmm.
That is
wait until he tells it to add some UI and to focus. Yeah, it's
it already built the agenda for us too.
But I think this is sort of the point.
We don't have we have zero, except now you're going to will you pay? Right. I think that's where you're going with this, Adam, right? You launch it, you see who's going to tap onto it.
So I only think this is only accelerating psychologically how important our work is, to be honest with you. It's like this was always possible. People were just reluctant because they were convinced that they needed to build it, or they needed a website that was believable or pretty to show, it's like the Reid Hoffman quote: if you're not embarrassed of the first version of your product, you ship too late. On the other hand, most people don't agree with that. They like some coders do, some hackers do, but most first-time founders do not actually believe that and are not willing to ship. This enables you to ship faster, but still requires you to do all of it, build it and they will come. We've been saying this for 10 years. Like, that is not a strategy. But ship it and they might, there's a nuance there. Like, you do need to get over the psychological hurdle of putting something in front of someone. But yes, now you still need to get people to trust this website, believe that it's real.
Right.
Pay for it. We still would need you can go back to the business model canvas. Like, we still need channels. We still need revenue.
Absolutely.
It solves maybe one of those 8 things, but it does cut down, if used properly, it cuts down the feedback loops.
Thank you.
Yes, if used properly.
Thank you.
Yep.
Because I can see somebody putting something out there, they could go and just let me go and build a new conference, or let me go and build a new business, and they never test it because they think that the AI is solved all this other stuff. And I've said this before, and I don't know the woman. I wasn't there for when we had the woman who from the AI leadership conference that you found, John, to bring on the AI leadership person.
Right.
But AI to me is fantastically intelligent, but horribly creative. Has no imagination. No, well creative and no imagination, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to imagine some things. It'll create all kinds of stuff, but it's horribly imaginative. Right. And so you have to go, even the process of creativity coming out of one's imagination is a test in and of itself, because you put something together and you're like, Does this have anything? A child putting together, your little boy putting together when you get the Legos and you have to beat him up because he has Legos everywhere. Will start creating stuff. It doesn't fit in the world. It's coming out of his imagination, right? It's not creative until he puts it together, but it's when he puts it together. And I got one of my students is really like, yeah, I got this AI is coming. I'm like, dude, no, it ain't. It's good, but it ain't all that. You got to have something else there. I don't know.
Right.
And I'm all for it. Trust me.
Yeah, it's a tool. You just got to know how to use the tool, right?
Exactly.
And so
exactly.
Yeah, so I think the real question becomes, it's a matter of now I like the way you framed it, Adam, is now we're actually running feasibility tests, but you can do those experiments much quicker than you probably could a couple of years ago, right? So you're not testing you're not testing desirability, you're not testing viability. And you can choose which order you want to do that, right? So if your business has a desirability problem, maybe you might want to figure that out first. But if you've already got the market, then now you need to start building quickly. Now you're shifting over into feasibility testing, and you're going to need to prioritize your assumptions. You're going to need to start, like you said, going through the business model canvas and saying, what are the things the actual key things that I need in order to test these things out.
So I would argue that, well, I wouldn't even argue it. I would ask, if you have a huge network, you might be able to cheat your way out of desirability testing.
True.
We all know how beneficial true problem discovery is, but it does take a lot of time. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of discipline. And I don't know, as the cost goes down to zero, a purist would argue if you get 1,000 conversions, but you don't know why, it's not repeatable. I don't know that to be true with this, actually. I think it's an interesting, I think you can prove, it might be lucky, it might not be sustainable, it might not be like responsible with someone else's money, but I mean, you could write 1,000 prompts in a day. If you had the network, eventually, you might eventually, lose the trust of your followers. And there's other implications of this, but desirability, implicit in desirability is willingness to pay. And if you put something up that was desirable,
Well, we're talking feature testing. That's where, again, we're beyond, or we're in a different quadrant of the business model canvas. So whether you assume that's already been done, whether you've already done those tests, this is a way that you can now quickly test purely feasibility. That's where I think, we're talking past each other, is that let's assume you've got this great idea for an app or something. Before, you'd really want to test desirability because building an app costs a lot, even the full stack apps, right? Where you need a server, you need a database and all that.
Yep.
Lovable.dev, you can build a full stack application with a prompt. You don't need to have a database engineer. You don't need to have a server engineer. You don't need to have an Amazon cloud engineer, right? And so you can just launch that and iterate, right, in front of your customer and say, here are the basic features, what's missing? And you're now just doing pure feature experimentation, not desirability or viability testing.
Well, but if they pay, you're testing parts of viability.
Sure. Absolutely.
And if they pay, you're testing.
What if you just want to test if it works and you don't care if it pays just yet?
That too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can do both, but I'm saying it's not limited to feasibility testing. I think you could, if you were willing to be undisciplined and break some rules, I think you could actually test desirability and viability with this tool as in addition to just testing if it works. Go ahead, Ty.
No, I was not you're an economics guy. John is an engineer. I was the guy who started in chemistry and was like, math got me nuts, and I left. But I've never not thought like a scientist. And so, John, you had to help me out. There feels like, and I looked it up, it's just I didn't know if this was the right term, but it feels like there's a point at which that even with this AI stuff, it's an asymptotic relationship. So an asymptote approaches some line, but it never gets there. And so even if you ran 1,000 prompts, it's not until you actually go and you test it with somebody, I think that's what we're talking about, that it actually crosses the line of value. And so if the straight line is the value, you're doing all these experiments, like running these prompts, run 1,000 of them. And it isn't until maybe that's what we're talking about, and I'm finally getting it, that somebody then says, I have a desire to exchange my hard-earned resource for this good and service. Ultimately, that's what a desirability test, right? I am willing to give you money for that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so
I get the fact that we can run these, but I would hate to get off of here in the next 20 minutes and somebody listens to us is like, yeah, we'll just run 1,000 prompts. No, it don't work like that, because that's you thinking that you got everything, because what you've done is taken what's in your head, write a prompt for it, and ask the machine to find the intersections between word A, word B, and word C to build out this idea. Right? That's, again, this is the quick way to do what we tell people not to do. Don't assume that you know everything.
But if you somehow had access, so people were doing this with Facebook ads a few years ago, right? They were sort of just
pure A, B, C, D, E, F testing.
Yeah,
yes.
like sort of just experimenting with image. And yes, it cost a shitload of money, but it wasn't, this is sort of my point. I'm going a little bit, against what I would normally say here. I agree that for most people, this is completely irresponsible, and it is not the correct, if you want to build value intentionally, this tool should be used to just continue to go through faster loops, and you should still be learning. But I think we have to, if we're being honest, we have to acknowledge that the Facebook strategy was only a bad strategy because you were basically sending all your money to Facebook. You were basically raising money from an investor, and Facebook would just get all of that money, and you were running, random ads. You didn't know if they were real people. You were getting sort of phantom conversions, and you ended up with an email list of people that were never going to convert because it was all trivial and it was all accidental. And that still took tens of thousands of dollars, your own social capital, and you didn't benefit from anything other than maybe some signal of like, some resonance with the market. This does change things in some, like you're doing the same thing, and it is kind of possible to, if you have access to again, this is why I'm saying feasibility risk is going to zero, but market risk is, you still need access to the market. You still need a distribution. But like,
well,
if your ad was if your landing page was targeted at like moms, the same, or like not to just start throwing random segments out there, but like athletes, like you could theoretically, especially if the back end, I've messed around. I don't know if I'm smart enough to do this yet, but it's like start self-optimizing based on what the person's looking for, what the person's searching for in search. It's like you could do it. Like aim a page at an athlete who's looking for health or in training, and it's like, I need to get strong. Oh, here's a landing page that helps you, and then like the AI
creates the landing page that Adam Burke is going to absolutely love. Exactly.
Right. And it's designed for one, and it's totally scalable, and it's self-optimizing.
That's what a lot of the AI strategists are saying is that content in the future will be hyper personalized.
Just personalized. It just like customized.
Hyper
It's not
personal.
even-
Yeah, it is. It is 100% written, designed, created for you at scale.
Right.
So none of this like, hey, we all stayed up, to watch the premiere of the show, the Irrational on Tuesday nights, and we all watch the same show. That's going to go on. Next generation, every show is going to be customized to them, and there's not going to have pop culture events in that sense, because it's going to be, well, it's going to tailor everything to me. So the same thing is true for, like I said, could be for landing pages, could be for product. That's the logical extreme to all this.
And I was just going to say it doesn't apply to, like, I was going to say it applies to content. It certainly applies to software. I was going to say it doesn't apply to, it applies to ed tech. Like you're going to have a customized, like there's just no question about it. It applies to health tech. And so I think it's a little bit.
Hopefully, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh, wow. We got like a real live comment, I think. It applies. Yeah. So.
Well, let's talk about the comment then. Yeah. Anastasia Jackson says,
"Hi, Anastasia. This is one of my, not my student, but I've been working with her."
Excellent question. So, would you need to go find your customers still when that happens? Or could companies just use their algorithms, right, to hyper optimize, like we said? And that's what I said earlier. Is it chicken or is it egg, right? Do you still need to do desirability testing? Or can you just, at scale nail, build so many prototypes that again, even the time, the risk, the effort goes down to zero, so that way you can just start making product and getting it out the door. Like you said, first to market, like you said, Ty.
I don't know. This is stupid. I'm saying I don't know, and then I'm going to say something, right?
But here's my answer.
It feels like to me that what you get with the artificial intelligence, because I can at a speed and scale with which we've never seen before. We were talking about wireframes. Wireframes used to be the playground of really, really good technicians, and they would build these things out. Could you help me build out? And then Figma came along, and now you can do things beyond Figma. Lovable, you can now just type it in with a prompt, and it'll give you a functioning wireframe. That being said, it seems to me that what the AI brings to the fight in terms of business models is scale and resource allocation, right? I now can think about how I am allocating my resources differently. Adam, you pointed out that Facebook made a ton of money in their marketplace by saying to people, give us a bunch of crap of money and you can run an experiment for $500,000 and we'll give you all the information back in 2 weeks. I don't need you except some place to put my stuff. And there's probably with Twitch and Discord and what's the other? I've started looking at Reddit now. I was not a Redditor before, but Jesus, I mean, you can get all kinds of
rabbit
information
hole
off of Reddit now. Oh my God, just down and down and down. That you could optimize and do resources differently. And so, Anastasia, I'm wondering, I think that you're right. Do I go find the customers? Do I depend on the algorithms to support my exploration of the market? So the algorithms drive me to the location versus me going and say, is this the right thing in terms of customer discovery? That's
because we often say it's very, very rarely, not never, but very, very rarely is it the build it and they will come, right? Because we are much stronger advocates for test desirability, then test viability, then go build it. But that's the point of this episode, is now to say, well, now that we've cracked the nut, and for certain products, digital products, right, e-commerce, e-health, e-education, like these things could be built very quickly, very cheaply, and could be published and ready for a link. And now you build in front of the customer as well. So you get the MVP out the door, and you can say, hey, what do you think about this? Well, it's good, but it doesn't include learning about Abraham Lincoln. Give me 30 seconds. Hey, look, it's got a whole course catalog of Abraham Lincoln courses. Now, what do you think now? Oh, well, I'd buy that. So you really can reverse engineer that process pretty quickly.
Well, it's interesting because I knew some guys at what was the name? His code name was Beach, right? But they were up in Boston. They were building out F2, doing F22 code. The first time of F22 code was like if they got an update once every 2 weeks, they were like, yeah. By the time my man got through it and he went through that command, it was a Star Wars reference. That's all I can think of right now. But by the time they got through that command, they were updating their code in like 3 times a day. And so you've now taken what they were building there and now have accelerated in a way. I don't need to be a computer scientist to be able to do this. I can just literally, with a little bit of training, John, you were talking about, your OKR and doing all the training. And I've seen it. One LinkedIn account was on LinkedIn post had like 13 free AI courses that you could take between Amazon, AR. There you go. Sounds like a new way of live testing.
That's exactly
absolutely.
Right. Yep.
Absolutely. And you don't have to worry about, that you're actually pulling it down much quicker and learning with the customer, which is what problem you're solving, for whom, to do what, and how will you know, right? Our 4 things that we came up with when we were working together, John, right? Which is the problem you're solving and how do you know, and all the rest of that stuff. Oh my God. It's not complicated, but it makes my head hurt. It makes my head hurt in a different way.
Nice. Yep.
Because we spent so much time kind of convincing ourselves that we had done it and we were getting success. And now a piece of technology comes along and then kind of throws it up in the air, but in a known way, right? It blows it up as like, oh, I recognize all those pieces.
well, so what comes to mind is, I remember specifically coaching one entrepreneur, and he says, I got this great idea and I know it's going to work. And of course my red flags start going off, and it was like, his idea was like something like Top Golf, but for other kind of sports or something. And he was trying to explain it all to me, and it was like, oh, it's gonna be this huge, massive warehouse. And so as soon as you say huge and massive for an idea, then you start to lose me as a coach. And after trying to talk him off the ledge all this time, I said, you know what? Fine. I've tried telling you how you can test it without spending any money. But you know what? If you know it's going to work, go for it. Go nuts. I've run out of things to tell you what not to do. And yet, in these certain arenas for tech, sometimes it could just be, you know what? Just go build it. If it's that quick, if you can build it in a day, go. That's your experiment. Go run. Like, just get it out the door, publish it, get eyeballs on it, because maybe that's the answer you need.
So it's interesting.
Does this redefine? Go ahead, Adam.
No, you go.
Does this redefine?
I was just thinking, does that redefine the nature of an MVP? Are we giving it a new a nuance of what an MVP is? If we're saying you're right, you know what? I just go and knock yourself out. Go build something, because you can build it like today and launch it and get some feedback in 3 days. Now you may come back to me and go, "Oh my God, that was not cool." So it puts the cart before the horse,
right?
In the MVP,
exactly right. That's where I'm working through this as well. That's where I think that with these tools that are no code, you don't need to be a designer, you don't need to be a full stack developer, you don't need to do all that stuff at all to get a working prototype out the door for someone to start clicking on in literally minutes.
So I think it's funny because I sort of had, so I think that's the value. You talk about coaching. I think this solves a problem for coaches, and it's a psychological problem. So I sort of got into a debate on Blue Sky about wireframes. And
Sounds
it
exciting.
was like exactly. That's why I was reluctant. That's why I was reluctant to bring this up. But bear with me for a second. So it was like wireframes are, to the old school wireframer, like they're more malleable. They're easier to, get through iterations quickly. Now, I won't say this is one-sided and it's not fair, but I think I learned two things from this debate with random stranger. The first thing wireframes were very good at was solving a communication problem between the person with the idea and the developer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, that's not what I want. Yes, that's what I want. It had nothing to do with the product and the desirability on the customer side. As I was watching the debate unfold, of course I can judge what the other person was thinking, but I do believe that was a missing link. It was like, no, like these AI tools are better than wireframes at getting a customer respond. They're faster. They're more, like we used to talk about low fidelity test. Like, you don't need low fidelity testing. The only benefit of low fidelity testing was you were sacrificing price or whatever the trade-offs were. I think what I'm trying to say. But like, there's no more trade-off. Like, low fidelity wasn't in and of itself better. And so the other thing that I realized is the job to be done is convincing the stubborn founder to believe it, not just the customer. So I could tell we as coaches have all done this. Like, you just literally told a story, like telling a person, all right, go do a paper prototype. Like, we know that that's the quickest way to get some feedback, but it doesn't matter. The founder does not believe it. But if you can mock up to pixel perfect believability,
right?
What are they going to like? Why didn't they convert now? Oh, either because there is no traffic. I used to talk a lot about the denominator, the numerator, or like, what are you arguing with? Are you arguing with the numerator or the denominator? So if you're arguing with the denominator, there's like which is conversions to views. So do the denominator, like, are you arguing with the denominator? Okay, your denominator is 0. Nobody saw it. Okay, but that's not fidelity. Then go put it in front of 1,000 of the right people. So that goes back to the Facebook conversation, or just owning your own channel somehow, or organic search. Fine.
Mm-hmm.
And now, are you arguing with the numerator? Like, you can't argue with the numerator anymore, because why? Do you think it was a bad test? Do you think they didn't believe it? Do you think, like, we can do this with our conference? Like, either nobody saw it or they saw it and they don't, this is not about low fidelity anymore. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's a huge difference. It's not about speed, cost. Well, it is about those things, but it's also about the founder believing the test, which I think was 80% of our struggle for the last 10 years. Maybe that's why I'm so excited about it. It's not about, like, because you could always mock things up in a day, in a day or two. It's just, that was always possible. And you could always find channel. You might have to pay a little bit too much, but it was still cheaper than, building building the whole thing for a year. None of these things were truly blockers, other than the founder is like literally the story you just told. Like, no, I there's no way I'll believe you. I'm not going to believe John. I need to see it for myself. Well, now you can. It's a simulator. It's a flight simulator.
I like that. Yeah, it's fascinating. So then, what are the next steps then? Like, what do we do? What do we do with this information that we can now build anything in minutes? It's only going to get better. It's only going to get more scalable. It's only going to get more robust.
Oh, John, I'm glad you asked. Okay, here's a couple of things. One thing is pure old school, like do what you would have. So do your classic, same thing. Jobs to be done, customer discovery, find out pain, not pains and find out the objective, the job, and then translate that into a landing, but then send the landing page out directly to the people that you interviewed.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that to me, and like you said, like in our viewers, and just rapid feedback, and then you can make changes a lot. You don't want to do the David Bland, who will be on next week, the death cycle. Ask, but you can at least go through the David Bland death cycle more quickly. Was it ask for features, build features? No one uses product. Yeah, so it's like that. That just going through that faster is not helpful, but I don't know. Like, I do think there are ways, like, whether it's self optimization, whether it's, I don't know. I think there's a way to get out of the death cycle faster. And then
one of the things that I'm convinced of, but now this is helpful for me. One of the things I know, we go, what did you learn that we'll do this again? And I'll repeat it because I think it's worth repeating. Is there was a part of me that was concerned about what's the role of the coach, of the star coach in this environment. That if I can go and just punch it out very quickly and build something, why would they want to come to talk to me? And something that you said, Adam, that helped with this is, and of course you too, John, comes to things you've been saying, but mostly with Adam, is if I am able to say to them, and I think start with you, John, and Adam finish it up, like, fine, just go build it. That if I'm able to say to somebody, okay, so what must be true, right? If you think that what you have works, if I'd say to them, so what must be true? And they list those, right? Talk about thing it is, and you list them 1 to N, and then you write a prompt against that thing that is at the top of your list. You write a prompt against and see what you can build, and then go test that. Oops, right. Go to the second thing. Write a prompt against that. Oops, right. Until you get to some point where, oh yeah, and you get proof positive, because now you've put something in front of them that's an MVP. You sped the cycle up to such end that you get number 14 in your list of 1 to N, and something goes bing because you've actually seen them touch it. And now it helps me help them, a client, get to the point, a founder gets to the point where, like, yeah, that sucked. Great. Why did it suck? Well, I did this. Well, what did they touch? Right? What did they click on? Right. And you do it even more rapidly, because I think that, so it doesn't take our role out. It shifts how we talk to our founders, right? Mm-hmm. So we don't have to get so involved up front. We just get them, what's the job to be done? What problem you're solving? Well, the job to be done is great. Write that down. Write a prompt to that and launch it and see what happens. What hypothesis associated with this? And so test cards are still valid. The David and tests are valid. How do you write? And it'll be interesting if David comes up with this. I don't know if he has, Adam, writing AI prompts associated with his tests.
Right.
That would be super interesting.
I think he's working. We'll ask him next week when he's here.
We'll ask him next week.
There you go.
So, this is a good follow-on episode to kind of the Agile one from last week. And one of the questions that you guys brought up, and I gave a real-world scenario of how, like, industry average is like 2-week sprints. I'm a fan of 1-week sprints, but does it get any shorter than that? And I use the example of how, like, during COVID, there was a team that was getting conflicting guidance in the morning and in the afternoon, and so they needed to build and deliver something by the middle of the day and then by the end of the day. So they actually needed to push their learning cycle much shorter. And so now we can do this. And so if we're hyper optimizing the build cycle, it's all about optimization, right? Where what turned me on a lean startup is the lean. Stop wasting time. Life is short. You've only got so many hours. Don't have this 8 months until you find out the users hate it. Well, now with the build part, the feasibility part, we have tools now that you can find out the users hate it at MVP 2, which only took you a half an hour to design, build, test, deploy, get feedback, and you're like, okay, great. I could stop. I'm done now. Like, the idea that was perfect in my head, I found out the users hate it. I asked them for a couple things they might want to change. It's not gonna convert to payment or to any sort of conversion metric. So great. I've learned very quickly the lean part. I've not wasted my life. I can now move on to the next project, right? I can get that data much, much, much faster than ever before.
Yeah, I think
So
that
there's
was
a part of this.
ultimately.
Go ahead,
I'll go
man.
this time. So I think that ultimately that was sort of my point. Like, I didn't want to come on like attacking agencies or, but there were a lot of non-tech founders for like 15 years who would, you know, go to an agency or someone who's like, we'll build your MVP. And it was costing them 50. It was pricing them out of the
Very
market, or
expensive. Yeah.
it was it's not all of them. Like, there's still great branding agencies that understand like stuff that I don't understand, that there's still a place for that, but there's not a place for the sort of give me 20 grand just because I am sort of control the code. Or, I remember even when I had my first startup, it was like just to change text on a website, you had to,
Yeah.
send money across, whether it's again, this is not an attack on agencies or outsourcing or whatever, but like giving the control to the founder, but also putting some of that money back in the founder's pocket. Like, I think it changes
Right.
a lot of these early stage programs. I think it changes a lot of the taboo. Like, oh, you can't take early stage investors' money. Like, maybe you can, like, for the first year, and not just like arbitrarily send it to some shop where, like, we've all heard the story 1,000 times. Like, the code never came back just right, and it was locked up somewhere, or like they got 80% of the way there and then it never worked anyway. So like all of those horror stories vanish instantaneously, and the feedback
Yeah.
cycles go to hours and days and weeks at the most. But you had people,
Yeah.
even though we were spending a decade trying to relegate, like, you did have people that were spending 10, 15, 50 grand
Right.
to, like, because they just had to put something in front of someone. They just wouldn't believe it any other way. And so
Mm-hmm.
this really solves that problem, I think.
Yep. So know when to use it,
Yep.
but yeah, it can solve that problem.
Real quick. I think two things that you both said something that struck me. And I'll start with you, John. And that was 30 minutes. I don't want to do anything else. I just have to wait. There is a part of that goes against the puritanical work ethic. You mean you did all this? What happened to the other 8 hours a day? I'm waiting for the customer. No, but you were supposed to be doing something, right? So that's one.
That is true.
The other
That is
one
very
is
true.
Adam saying, but there is a cost per unit value that's part of this equation as well. That if I can now do something that heretofore previously had cost me $50,000 and I can do it for $20 and a subscription to Chat GPT, right? And so my sense is that there's going to be a leap in the conversation about lean startup. There's going to be a leap in the conversation about how we build products. That's already happening, but I don't know if we've done the psychological, the philosophical, and the monetary conversations associated with these leaps.
Love it.
Not convinced yet.
No, I 100% agree with you. And here's why I got excited when you said that. I'm going to end on a story. So the contract I was on right before COVID was a butts and seats contract. So in other words, they were buying my expertise by the hour. And so I had to charge 40 hours a week to do this. Now, not only do I crush my own personal OKRs, I do a pretty good job at work too, right? And so they're paying me to fill 40 hours a week. Even if I get all that work done on Monday, I have to sit my butt in that seat because they check the badge records of when you walked in the building. So I had to fill that time. And so what does that incentivize? It doesn't incentivize you getting your work done early because I can't take off. And so to your point, Ty, back then, even before all this AI blew up, I said, it would be better to pay me twice my salary and have me work half the time. because you still get the same result. The math works out, and I get the rest of my week off. You get the product. You get your product delivered. I get to take the rest of the week off, and I get my life back that I can't buy back later. And so, to your point, I just love how you made that connection, because whether people use AI, and that's sometimes in some corporations still today, it's a dirty secret that, oh, you need to write this report. Well, it'll take me, 2 minutes to write the report with me and ChatGPT, and then I slacked off the rest of the day, because we haven't incentivized and optimized the human to go with the optimization of the AI. And that's where we're going to go next.
But
Let's turn to the punch bowl, Adam. Let's go.
if the founder is self-motivated, or it's not, it's not this adversarial. If there's alignment, then the founder will shift their attention to spending the other 7.5 hours in the day finding customers and
absolutely.
So I agree. I agree, but
100%. Yep.
I mean, it's a class. I didn't make that up. You won't lose job. You'll just be elevating to the better job, and so I think it's the same exact thing here. But I agree. If it's just not rent seeking, but if it's like scarcity or mutually exclusive kind of one, what is it when one side gains, the other one loses?
Zero sum mindset.
Yeah, zero. Yeah. So if it's zero sum, yes, then I agree. If someone has to exploit someone, if it's zero sum, then it doesn't work. But if there's alignment and you are like sort of optimizing the back end on where to allocate resources, then, because yes, on the one hand, you're going to get more supply, but like whoever's then incentivized to figure out demand and test demand and understand the philosophical, all the things that Ty just said, that's now who wins, which is why I was saying feasibility goes to zero, but it's like desirability, all these elements of desirability, you can double down, triple down, and truly understand, man.
There you go. It frees you to do better customer discovery. Beautiful.
Wow. An hour and 2 minutes, and this went just like crazy.
Yeah.
Because at one point I looked up, it was like 20, next like 40. I'm like, whoa, snap. Where'd the hour go? Hey, nice. I appreciate you guys. This was a good, this was a good.
Appreciate all these big brains I get to work with. So keep crushing it. Happy Monday. We'll see you next week.
Hey, anybody that's on Anastasia, if you're still there, thank you. It was fun. Thank you jumping on. Sure you check us out.
All right. See you next week.
All right.